Alright, so this is my pop culture presentation, and I'm doing it on Assassin's Creed Syndicate, made by Ubisoft Quebec. Okay, so we start the game with the Friar twins, the main characters, Jacob and Evie, who are interchanging main characters throughout the game. You can play both of them. It follows them through their exploits as a part of secret organization known as the Order of Assassins. This order has a large role in the protection and peace of mankind throughout history, specifically protecting and preserving these artifacts known as Isu artifacts. That is this crazy weapons of power from gods that came before humans, blah blah blah. Anyways, not getting to that. Jacob and Evie end up following a lead for one of these artifacts to London, where they meet up with a section of the organization known as the British Brotherhood. This is where they meet up with the master assassin Henry Green, eventually Evie's love interest, and discover that London is completely taken over and
Shall
corrupted
will
by
be
their
mine.
sort of arch nemesis, another beginning of time secret organization that wants peace through total world domination. They're called the Order of the Knights Templar. So in the game, you follow two storylines. One as Evie Fry, as she discovers clues, as well as facing off against the
Cowering in the
Templars,
shadows, Miss Fry.
following these artifacts with the help of Sir Green. And the second follows Jacob Fry as he starts a gang, calls them the Rooks, and slowly takes over every borough of London from the rival gang known as the Blighters, which is the Templar gang. And he also assassinates a whole lot of people and causes a lot of problems. Anyways, that's the summary. Assassin's Creed Syndicate, while displaying a generalized history of Victorian London through its open world map and famous figures, the game modifies the relevance of its politics or traits for the sake of a more enjoyable gameplay, but in turn it affects the historical consciousness of Victorian accuracy for the players. Assassin's Creed prides itself on its open world exploratory gaming. Being able to navigate every corner of the city, interact with so many historical sites, it takes a big focus when developing the game. This is where their strengths lie, therefore, it is where they put the most accuracies they can. Walking from one end of the city to the other, there's a noticeable difference in the people, the buildings, and the livelihoods of the characters. Looking far into Westminster, you can see the open space, the beautiful gardens, while people and police casually stroll without a worry in sight. It is clean, well kept, and only the richest and most respected are able to wander around. If you walk east from there, going over the filthy, crowded Thames River, you end up in Southwark. There you can see the less appealing side of London,
Yes,
billowing
sir,
smoke
Miss
coming from the factories, the children and drunkards walking around aimlessly in their patchy attire. Some of the streets are nothing but dirt, while the houses are just empty. Showing the two sides of London is one of the highlights in my mind of the game. Even for someone who isn't fully aware of the class difference at the time, it is easy to pick up as you do missions in each area. While you're taking that stroll through the city, you'll encounter a lot of lighters, which are a component to the game that is sort of a needed inaccuracy. They are in every street corner of London, wearing their distinctly bright red tailored suits, and somehow all own very expensive weaponry and are highly trained in fighting. They hold a monopoly on all crime, politics, and business in London, more specifically child labor and political corruption, which is used as a game mechanic for you as the protagonist of the story to kind of rid London of. Choosing to have this large gang presence allows for them to explain certain unpopular aspects like child labor or quack medicine, but instead of show them in a less of a sense of universal agreement that it would have been at the time, more of oppressive, an oppressive force that the antagonist forces on the people. There are tons of other aspects in the city of London that the developers of the game decided to implement or not, but in all, they chose to enhance or modify certain historical traits from Victorian London to use them to their advantage in providing more of a memorable gaming experience. While you explore the city of London, ridding it of corruption and crime, you encounter sort of famous figures all around. Each one is implemented to the story and is used to introduce different ideas, events, or tropes from London. So quickly I'm going to go through every relevant one and name what they represent. Charles Dickens, the famous author that lived between 1812 till about 1870. uses Evie and Jacob to explore the more supernatural side of London. They track down rumors of ghosts or demonic figures, usually finding them out to be fakes or just people tormenting others for money. Charles Darwin is famous for his contributions to evolutionary biology. In the game, he helps the twins solve a sort of fake medicinal crisis. But his role mainly shows the anti-evolutionary mindset that challenged Darwin at the time, spraying propaganda to counter him throughout the city. Karl Marx appears in the game. He uses the twins to protect him in his meetings and rallies for the Workers' Party as he's constantly challenged through his campaign. He asked them later on to consider the working class more in their actions when they're helping the city, and even asked them to be figureheads for the Workers' Party. Duleep Singh, his goal at the time of meeting the twins is to reclaim his birthright that was taken by Britain. He asked Evie to help him lobby politicians to his cause, but to be honest, he's the sole representation of the East India Trading Company or even British imperialization. Marianne Disraeli, who is a wealthy figure that was close to Queen Victoria at the time, she encounters Jacob Fry and asks him to be sort of a guard while she goes on a tourist view to just look and observe the struggling poor in London. She becomes a flâneuse in kind of a way. Now, along with those real characters, there are some figures that are uh, just based on tropes to show certain aspects. Pearl Attaway, who's the cousin of Crawford Sterrick, the leader of the Templars, is put into Jacob's side of the story to introduce the progression of the combustion engine and its impact on basically everything at the time, how vital it was. Clara O'Dia is more of a smart, witty orphan kid that somehow has an enterprise on all other orphans in the city. She's the one that helps the twins take down London's child labor all throughout. Overall, the developers take these recognizable figures and put them in direct contact with the main characters to portray quick glances of ideas they chose not to put directly into the city: imperialism, political issues abroad and internal, the struggles and mistreatment of the working class, and the treatment of the rich towards the lower classes. I guess it's their way of subtly mentioning all other sorts of issues from that time without having to put them as such a large part of the game. The choices that the developers made to change the importance of certain historical aspects of Victorian London are what affect the historical consciousness of the player politically. Through the emphasization on gang presence and political corruption over some of the issues that were only subtly mentioned, through the famous figures that you get an idea of priorities for the developers. The relevance of some accuracies over others was sacrificed to follow the format that Assassin's Creed uses in its game series. So this leads to the player putting certain political issues in a stronger light than others, or completely amplifying components that make it inaccurate.